Good people don't lose because they're stupid. They lose because the world is not organized around goodness. Every society praises morality, then quietly promotes those willing to abandon it when it matters. If you believe power rewards virtue, subscribe and like now. Not to support this channel, but because the people who leave at this moment are the ones this truth was built to expose. By the end of this, you'll understand why goodness is admired and almost never allowed to rule. Before we begin, subscribe and like now. Not because it helps the channel, but because you already know you'll keep listening, and pretending otherwise is the first lie power teaches you to tell yourself. Part 1, A Forbidden Manual, abridged due to length limits. The truth no one forgives. Power is not misunderstood. It is refused. People do not reject the truth about power because it is complex, but because it is humiliating. The humiliation is this: morality does not rule human behavior. Incentives do. And when incentives collapse, morality evaporates with them. Every civilization teaches the same comforting myth: that good people rise, that justice prevails, that evil destroys itself. Yet history records the opposite pattern with merciless consistency. Those who gain power do not do so by being virtuous. They do so by being necessary. They are tolerated when useful, admired when victorious, condemned only after they fall. If power rewarded goodness, the world would look very different. Instead, it rewards clarity, decisiveness, and the willingness to act while others hesitate. This is why moral people are endlessly shocked by political outcomes. They assume the world runs on principles. It runs on pressure. Stay with this until the end. Because once you see power clearly, you can never unsee it. And if you're already listening this far, subscribe and like. Because abandoning clarity halfway through is how most people remain powerless. The moral illusion: why virtue is preached but dominance is rewarded. Every society is built on a contradiction. It teaches virtue publicly and rewards dominance privately. Children are taught to share. Adults are rewarded for taking. Citizens are told to be honest. Leaders are praised for strategic ambiguity. The contradiction is not accidental. It is functional. Morality exists to regulate the masses. Power exists to govern outcomes. Virtue stabilizes society by encouraging restraint among those without leverage. But restraint is fatal to those competing for control. This is why moral systems are always aspirational, never descriptive. They describe the world as it should be, so people endure the world as it is. Look carefully at who is punished for moral failure. It is rarely the powerful. It is those who failed without winning. Hypocrisy is not what ends careers. Loss does. A leader may lie for decades and be called pragmatic. The moment they lose, the same lie becomes corruption. Morality is retrospective. It is applied after outcomes are decided. This is why societies cannot function without moral myths. If people understood that virtue does not protect them, obedience would collapse. So the illusion is maintained that fairness matters, that intentions matter, that goodness is eventually rewarded. It isn't. Only leverage is. And the most dangerous lie morality tells is this: that power corrupts. Power does not corrupt. It reveals. It strips away the luxury of pretending intentions matter more than results. This is why moral people fear power. They sense, correctly, that it will expose what they cannot defend. The nature of power: fear, reward, and deception. Power is not authority. Authority is granted. Power is the ability to shape behavior without consent. It operates through three mechanisms: fear, reward, perception. Fear is the oldest. It requires no explanation. People comply faster to avoid loss than to pursue gain. This is not a cultural trait. It is biological. A threat does not need to be constant. It only needs to be credible. This is why inconsistent punishment destroys authority. It teaches people risk is manageable. Reward comes next. But reward alone never sustains loyalty. Rewards create dependency, not devotion. And dependency turns into resentment the moment supply weakens. This is why rulers who rely solely on generosity fall quickly. They train expectations they cannot permanently satisfy. Then there is perception, the most elegant form of power. Perception governs reality because humans act on belief, not truth. A weak ruler who appears strong is safer than a strong ruler who appears weak. This is why symbols matter more than substance. Why ceremonies outlast policies. Why narratives survive facts. People do not follow leaders. They follow stories about leaders. And deception is not a deviation from power, it is embedded within it. Every stable regime lies. Not because it is evil, but because total transparency invites chaos. Truth destabilizes when it threatens cohesion. So it is filtered. Delayed. Reframed. The ruler who insists on full honesty will be replaced by one who lies better. This is not cynicism. It is pattern recognition. You're still here. Which means part of you already knows this is true, and resents how rarely it's said. If you leave without subscribing or liking, you're not rejecting the message. You're pretending you didn't hear it. And pretending is the first surrender. The ruler's dilemma. Machiavelli posed the question not as a preference, but as a warning. If you must choose, it is safer to be feared than loved. Not because fear is noble, but because love is fragile. Love depends on perception of benefit. Fear depends on expectation of consequence. When circumstances change, love dissolves. Fear adapts. The ruler who seeks love must constantly perform. They must appease, reassure, and explain. The ruler who commands fear needs only consistency. But fear alone is not enough. Unchecked fear creates desperation. Desperation creates rebellion. This is why effective rulers balance fear with predictability. They are feared but not erratic. Severe but not arbitrary. Cruelty, when necessary, must be swift and final. Endless punishment breeds hatred without obedience. Mercy, when offered, must appear intentional not weak. The mistake moral leaders make is believing kindness earns loyalty. It earns expectation. And expectation is a debt that compounds. When kindness can no longer be afforded, resentment replaces gratitude. This is why fallen leaders are always described as betrayers. Not because they changed, but because reality did. The ruler's dilemma is not moral. It is structural. You cannot be both fully loved and fully secure. One requires vulnerability. The other requires distance. And distance is the price of command. Good. Then we continue, without softening the blade. If you're still listening, subscribe and like now. Not because this channel needs you, but because refusing to commit after choosing to continue is how people practice weakness in private. Part 2, the descent completed. The unspoken rules, why leaders must act against virtue. Every system survives by rules it refuses to admit. These rules are never written. They are learned through consequence. The public rules exist to preserve order. The unspoken rules exist to preserve power. Virtue is celebrated because it is safe. Effectiveness is hidden because it is unsettling. A leader who follows virtue perfectly will fail quickly. Not because virtue is wrong, but because others will not follow it when stakes rise. This is the first unspoken rule. You will be judged by outcomes, not intentions. but punished for admitting you knew this. This is why effective leaders speak the language of morality while acting in opposition to it. They promise fairness while negotiating advantage. They speak of peace while preparing force. They invoke unity while dividing threats. This is not hypocrisy. It is camouflage. The second rule is more dangerous. You must never appear to enjoy power. Enjoyment signals hunger. Hunger invites challengers. A ruler who appears reluctant is trusted more than one who appears eager. This is why ambition must always be disguised as duty. Why dominance must look like burden. Why authority must sound exhausted. Those who openly desire power are resisted. Those who claim they were called to it are obeyed. The third rule. Never correct illusions that benefit you. People do not want truth. They want coherence. If they believe you are benevolent, let them. If they believe you are strong, reinforce it. If they believe you are necessary, protect that belief at all costs. Correcting favorable myths is moral vanity. And vanity is a luxury power cannot afford. The fourth rule. Enemies are more useful than friends. Friends demand consistency. Enemies justify control. An external threat unifies factions that would otherwise fracture. This is why leaders rarely eliminate all opposition. They curate it. A visible enemy distracts from internal weakness. A permanent crisis excuses permanent authority. This is not paranoia. It is structural maintenance. And the final unspoken rule, the one most leaders learn too late. Once you possess power, innocence becomes a liability. You will be blamed for outcomes you did not choose. You will be accused of motives you never had. You will be hated for constraints reality imposed. At that moment, moral purity becomes irrelevant. What matters is whether you can still act. And those who cling to virtue when action is required do not remain leaders for long. Pause here. You're absorbing something uncomfortable. That discomfort is not confusion, it's recognition. If you walk away now without subscribing or liking, you'll tell yourself it's indifference. It isn't. It's avoidance. The lonely throne, why power isolates and weakness invites destruction. Power is crowded on the way up. It is empty at the top. Those who seek leadership imagine influence as connection. In reality, it is separation. The higher you rise, the fewer truths reach you. Not because others are dishonest, but because honesty becomes dangerous around power. People learn quickly what you reward. They adapt their words accordingly. Praise travels upward faster than warning. Agreement arrives before accuracy. This is why rulers miscalculate. Not because they are unintelligent, but because dissent disappears long before reality does. Power isolates in three ways. First, through fear of consequence. No one wants to be the messenger who threatens stability. Second, through projection. People see what they want to see in you: strength, protection, salvation. And they shape their behavior to preserve that image. Third, through self-censorship. The powerful learn restraint in speech, not out of humility, but survival. Every word can be weaponized. Every admission reinterpreted. Every doubt amplified. So leaders speak less. Trust fewer. And think alone. This loneliness is not accidental. It is the cost of command. But weakness invites something worse than isolation. Weakness invites replacement. History is unforgiving to vulnerable rulers. Compassion without strength is read as opportunity. Once a leader appears unable to enforce consequences, alliances shift instantly. Loyalty is not betrayed. It is recalculated. This is why fallen leaders are always shocked by how fast support evaporates. They mistake compliance for devotion. They mistake proximity for loyalty. Power reveals the truth late. And only once. Those who cannot bear isolation try to soften their authority. They seek reassurance. They over-explain. And in doing so, they confirm doubt. The throne is lonely because it must be. Because shared power is diluted power. And diluted power invites challenge. Final truth, power is never moral. Power does not ask whether something is good. It asks whether it works. Morality is a language. Power is a mechanism. The two intersect, but they do not answer to each other. Every effective ruler understands this privately. Every failed ruler denies it publicly. This is why history is written with reverence for outcomes and selective amnesia for methods. The winners are remembered as complex. The losers are remembered as cruel. Power is not rewarded for goodness. It is rewarded for clarity. Clarity about human nature. Clarity about incentives. Clarity about limits. Those who cling to illusions about fairness, gratitude, or inherent loyalty are eventually corrected, brutally. This is the realization people resist. You do not live in a moral world. You live in a responsive one. It responds to force. To leverage. To perception. And it is indifferent to your intentions. Power is not evil. But it is not kind. It does not bend to what should be. Only to what is. Those who accept this are called dangerous. Those who deny it are ruled by those who didn't. If this unsettles you, good. It means you're awake. And if you listened until the end, subscribe and like. Not to support the channel. But because choosing clarity and refusing to acknowledge it is the most common way people surrender power without realizing it. Power does not reward goodness. It rewards those who see clearly. And are willing to act without illusion.